Whether you're new to pool and practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the Drill Partner is perfect for you.
PremierBilliards.com. Exceptional cues, cases, and accessories from top-tier brands. Want it? Need it? Find it. PremierBilliards.com.
What is up, everybody? Panozzo, how are you, my man?
I'll see you more in the next 40 minutes than I did in 5 days we were in Vegas together.
We were in the same city and we couldn't see each other, man. It was hectic. It's been hectic. You doing all right, buddy?
Crazy. Oh yeah, fine. It was a crazy week, right?
It was. World champion has been crowned. What is it? How 1, 2, 3, 4 events? 5 events? Something like that? Pro events?
5 events.
Five pro events. I think over $500,000 in prize fund. We're here live from Griffs. We're doing the U.S. Open. Collins and myself, the madman himself, is in there doing some short form content to post up, and we're gonna be live in I think another hour for the U.S. Open 10-ball championship. But lots to dive into, Mike. I don't know where to begin. Why don't you lead the way, buddy? Because
who the heck knows? It was it was kind of the controllable pro version of Derby. It was just one event after the next out there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't 500 player fields, right? It was, for the pros, I mean, they had to love it for the most part, especially the top pros who were in the World 10 ball as well. And for the women pros, it was a fantastic week out there. They had a full open tournament with the Las Vegas Open, and then they had the 16-player women's showdown. So it was, it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of action. I thought it all ran pretty smoothly.
Really? You thought you'd call that ran smoothly?
I mean, logistically. Okay, we can get into referees and ankle sacks and legs and all that stuff.
There's a long list, Mike. There's a long list.
There's a long list.
Yeah.
But I think overall the events were really good. I see some posting 64 players for World 10 ball is kind of weak. I disagree from the standpoint that I think 64 is plenty. It used to always be 64. 128, you're almost getting into an open tournament. I do agree that 64 was not chosen properly. I agree.
For what reason, Mike? What reason are you?
Well, we talked about this a little bit before. It was 64 players, right? So 16 players went from the top 16 in the WPA list, right? That took care of legitimately your 16 best players. After that, though, allocations went, because it's a WPA event, allocations went to continental federations, and they determined how to disperse those allocations. So in the case of Europe, the European Association decided to give most of their spots to Euro Tour regulars. Okay. Who's the kid who just pushed Carlo to 9-8?
Luca Men.
Your Yuma Dorners, guys like that, in place of Europeans who should have been there, like a David Alcade, like a Sanjin Pelovanovic, Clenti Kachi, the defending champion. The defending champion had to get a wild card into the event because the European Association wasn't going to nominate his name. I mean, so
say that again, Mike. Say that a little louder for me. I'm having a hard time. I'm having a hard time hearing the audio cut out. Say that last part one.
So I had a problem with the way some of these spots were allocated by the Continental Federation, particularly Europe. I thought that they did a really self-centered, stubborn job of selecting players but if it was, a true allocation to the top players in these different continents, then I think 64 is plenty.
Okay. Well, first of all, big shout out to Mucci for helping me out to get over there for those last few days of the World 10 Ball Championship. We got a Q giveaway that I'll be announcing for them that we gave away out there. So They allowed me to go out there, and I was able to watch some great pool, Mike. And you're right, there was 64 players in the World Championship, but for me, Mike, I think that having the best players should take precedent over serving federations, and I think there's a good balance to be had there. In years past, having the 128, I think that you can get into a point where you're going to have a certain amount of players who are going to be dead money, but there were names on the list of the World Championship on 64 that I had no idea who they were, Mike. Now it's not.
And again, to me, that was an allocation issue. If you went with the top 64 players, I think 64 is plenty for the World Championship. The 128 player
based off of WPA, but not everybody's playing WPA, Mike. There's been a lot of players who are skipping WPA consistently.
So, maybe the WPA should have taken 32, the top 32, and allocated 32 to the federation, right? But you've got to let federations have some of their picks.
You got to have some common sense, though, too, Mike. You got to have some because listen. I love seeing guys like Luka Man. I love seeing a Yuma Dormer, guys who are playing great.
Not in the World Championship. I don't want to see them.
No, but I do, but I wouldn't mind them being on the fringe. I wouldn't want them to get those automatic spots based off of allocations. A kid like Moritz should have gotten in to that event, Mike.
No doubt about it.
He's a top, let's say, 20 player right now, easily on earth. And you're telling me that he's being left off of a World Championship. Alexa, Sanjin got second, and they're using him on promos, Mike, for the World Championship. Meanwhile, the kid couldn't even get a spot in the event, Mike. So
no argument. No argument.
It's I don't want to stroke anybody's federation over having common sense, Mike, in the sport, and that seems to be a common theme when it comes to dealing with whether it's EPBF or WPA or Predator or whoever else. All these guys who are in bed together, it's like they do certain things and they'll justify it a certain way. Well, we got to have allocations for this and for that, rules for this, rules for that. But common sense, isn't that hard to achieve, Mike? And you're leaving off the best players. And don't get me wrong. Listen, Carlo played phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Semifinal was great. The final was a little lackluster for me, Mike. And I think Carlo could have just as well gotten there had the field been deeper.
Sure, of course,
right? But there's a lot of players, a lot of great players who were left off of that event, Mike.
Yeah.
And you can't overlook it. And it's a World Championship.
Yeah, no, that's that I'm not arguing with you any of all. Like I just said, I just think that for me personally, if you really do get the 64, the right 64, then I think that's still a fair tournament.
Yeah. No, listen,
a World Championship to me shouldn't have dead money.
Yeah, but you're never gonna have like that. That's just gonna be a matter of debate.
Dead money.
But look at the names you're leaving off, and that's just the name.
But I'm saying you replace Alexa with Luka Men. You replace David Alcade with Yuma Dermer. That to me is common sense.
But you're gonna have some Cinderellas, Mike. It's just bound to happen, right? Look at
Muhammad
Sufi in last year's World 9-Ball Championship, Mike. Before then, would we have put him into a 64 player field?
I'm sorry, run that by me again.
Muhammad Sufi, last year's World 9-Ball champion, runner-up. Right? Would you have put him into a 64-player field prior to that World 9-Ball Championship?
No, this is what I mean. Of course, things like that can happen. If you make it 256, somebody completely.
There's a middle ground to be had between 64 and
Muhammad Sufi have made it. Should he have made it at 128? If you went around the world to the top 128,
he would have been on the fringe. I think you would have been on the fringe, but you wouldn't have taken too far to get through Euro Tour rankings to say, hey, listen, this guy should be into the 128. My point is that you leave. They can be stubborn when it comes to their own rankings all they want, right?
Yep.
But we've seen top players play all over the world month in and month out, right? We know who's a top player and who isn't. Kachi getting in on a wild card while he's the defending champion, Mike. Defending champion gets in on a wild card.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, all these guys who are great at marketing don't even seem to point these things out. It takes Detective Pinozzo over there living in Wisconsin, having 40 years in the industry in order to put these kind of information out there.
What's living in Wisconsin got to do with that?
Nobody likes living in Wisconsin, Mike. Let's just be honest. All right, it's cold. Look at you. You're buttoned up still. It's cold. But it's ridiculous, and it shouldn't be the case for a world championship, Mike. Not for me. And listen, this is just one of the issues that had gone on over those whatever it was 10
I do
days
want to,
or
yeah, I agree, no doubt about it. But I do want to address. I see Matt, and I'm not sure which Matt that is, but saying allocations break down when a number of spots are not for qualified competitors. I agree with that to an extent. You can't compare Hunter Lombardo getting a spot to Sanja not getting one because they're in different continents, and the U.S. didn't get nearly the number of allocated spots that Europe got or China or Asia got.
but
Right,
it just
so
further proves my point that there's top players who don't play WPA events. So while they may not be ranked in a particular 16 or 32 on the WPA rankings, ask 100 people that are fans of pool world or in any way, shape, or form involved whether or not Sky is a better player than a Hunter Lombardo. No disrespect to Hunter, but common sense, Mike. Common sense here. You
well,
know,
Sky was in it.
well, yeah, but okay, we can keep on going down that list before we go and skip Hunter, Mike. You know, is my point.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, if it's a true world championship in a Olympic-ish type of world championship, world track field, whatever it is, you've got to allow these developing countries, which at this point the U.S. kind of is in terms of pro pool, you got to let them send
Ouch.
representatives.
Ouch.
You got to let them send representatives because that's what built it up. South America deserved to have a couple players in the field. Are they as good as Sanjin? No, but they deserve to have a couple players in the field. New Zealand, Australia, they deserve to have a couple players in the field. That's the way world championships work.
I get it, but not for the sake of leaving out the best players in the world, Mike. Right?
Some of them are gonna be left out. That's the way it is in world championships in any sport. In any sport, true world championships that have representation from around the world, people are left out. You know,
Mike, one of my favorite movies as a kid was Cool Runnings, man. You know,
right?
The team
they should
from
have never been in.
The bobsledding team.
They should have never been in, right?
Listen, you can have them in. Just make sure you have in the better players along with that, right? That's my point.
Well, yeah,
that's my point.
There were 25 teams that got left out of the Swiss bobsledding team for that year that were better than the Jamaicans. So it's the same thing. There are 25 Europeans that didn't make it that are better than Hunter, but you've got to have proper allocation from around the world. You just have to. Otherwise, don't call it a world championship. Just make it, it's like one of the open events. All the players go to the open event.
You're saying calling it a world championship for the sake of because we want to have that Olympic style theme. Listen, I want to see the best players play, period. End of story. I want to see
you do in every other tournament that they run. The hell,
but not 10 ball though. We don't get a proper 10 ball tournament like that. You know, this is the one time of year where we get the best players on earth going and playing 10 ball. And then never mind the fact that they butchered that format with those races to 4, best of 5, which was terrible. Absolutely awful. You know, but then you go and throw in 64 versus leaving out a ton of players. I just don't understand some of these guys who are making the decisions, Mike.
I mean, got to be honest with you. I liked when it got down to best of 5 sets. I liked that.
Did you? You like being there for 6 hours, buddy?
Well, 4 hours. But you know what? In matches, 4.5 was a long one. Okay. In matches like that, though, it holds your interest because it's sets. And anybody can come back down. Fran was down 2-0. It took 4.5 hours, but he came back and won that match, right? Against Copenhagen. That was exciting stuff. I would rather see that than a race to 13 and it's 11-2 after an hour and a half, and you're just waiting for it to be over. Okay,
look, so Mike, you brought up the Kid Luca Min alternate break format here at the U.S. Open 10 ball championship. 8-5 down, alternate break. Carlo comes back. Don't tell me that shit can't happen, Mike, because it can.
Of course it can happen, but I don't dislike the 5-set thing. I thought those matches were really good, really compelling. It kept you in it the whole time. It kept the players in it the whole time.
It wasn't broken either, Mike. It wasn't broken because the World Championship was great just the way that it was. It was great in race to 8. It was great in races to 10. Like you're the guy who likes to have some kind of history here. Leave it the way it was, man. It was fine. It was great stuff. Kachi's performance last year was great. We got the best players last year, Mike. You had Federer, Filler, Francisco. You had the best players there at the end, you know, in the format the way that it was. You know,
well, the earlier rounds where it's race to 4, best of 3 sets, that I don't like. If you're going to do
it from the jump, is that what you're saying?
No. Well, then maybe make the best of 3 set longer races. Make it to 6 instead of 4. So, whatever.
Well, listen, I don't want to be that guy that says, I got the right answer for everything. But damn, man, I liked it the way it was personally, And I think
Yeah.
a lot of players felt the same way. At least people who I've talked to, Predator or otherwise, whether on the record or off the record, kind of felt the same way and echoed the same thing, you know. But it did have some great moments. Big shout out to Carlo winning the world championship, best player, super consistent,
Yeah.
absolutely deserved to have that championship, Mike. I was hoping we'd get a Federer Carlo final, but the bracket didn't
You did. It
allow.
was just in the
It was
semifinals.
just, it was just the semifinal. Yeah,
Kyle
I
even
think
said later he felt like that was the final match. He said that was the championship
did he?
match. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, if you look
With
at the
no
bracket,
disrespect
anybody.
to Oi. I mean,
Yeah.
and everybody had to love Naoki Oi getting in the final again. I mean, you
Oh,
want to see him win one of these
he's a
big
great story,
events.
Mike.
He's a great story, and he's been in the final of 2 World 10 balls in the last 4 years.
Well, listen,
Pretty strong.
I walked up at the tail end of him winning a set there at the Rio, and the roar in the crowd was something that kind of gave me goosebumps, Mike. Because he's
Yeah,
got a lot of fans because of his personality, his antics,
of course.
his play is still phenomenal. Obviously, he's showing form, but listen, age, father time, undefeated. He's not going to have very many world championship runs left in him. So a lot of people were there rooting for him, and it was a great story, Mike. It worked out. It worked out very well. And by the way, he picked up 45,000 on the way out the door. Not bad for a few days' work,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
the prize fund, prize fund. We talked about them only paying 16 deep, which I still think in a world championship is a little bit light. They say the argument is that it's 25% of the field, and that's one thing in a 256, but in a 64 player world championship where guys have earned their spot there, I think I would like to see guys who finish 17th get a couple of bucks to go home with, but the players a lot of the players seem to like the payout breakdown. So if they like it, that's fine with me, I guess.
I've seen mixed feelings on both sides. Obviously, guys who are going deep are going to feel one way, and the guys who aren't are going to feel the other way.
Did you talk to 17th place Shane? What did he say?
No, I can. I'll be glad. I'll be glad to ask him that question.
Just give a note to the guy in the little scooter and have him ride by Shane's table again and hand him the note.
Yeah, that thing was brutal, Mike. I mean, you want to talk about ridiculous? I'm over there chewing on gummy worms, and I look up, and there's this old man who's just cruising through like he's on I-35, and just running by the TV table here at Griffs, and gave zero Fs about what he was doing. They're in the middle of an opening round matchup. You got 2 world champions who are facing each other. And the guy's just cruising on through. It's unreal. You can't make that shit up. So anyway, Mike, let's continue on talks. I saw Sky's live post yesterday, and that was just a number of comedy of errors, whether referee imposing rules or whatever. Mike, it seemed a little. It seemed like the event, while there was some great stories, had this tone throughout it from the beginning to end. Whether it comes to referees, decisions, whatever, never mind the format, never mind the equipment, never mind all those things, Mike. It was kind of a shit show at times, Mike. And I'm trying to be as polite as I can in describing it.
Yeah, the referees, the EPBF is the bane of my existence. Has been for years. I think that they're way too we know what's best for everybody. Don't question what we do. Everything's got to be strict rules, strict. So they had all the EPBF refs in there, right? So that to me was a problem. So there was no common sense. There was, this is the rule. Don't touch the ball after I put it down. Okay, fine. Call that as many times you want. Now the tournament's over. Tell me why that rule is relevant. Okay, Cheska Sentinel gets sent back to her room to change her socks. Otherwise, they're going to forfeit her match.
How far does that walk, Mike? For those people who watch the show that have
I don't care if it was 20 feet away. Someone tell me where they, the reason that they have to have this rigid rule about your pant leg has to touch the top of your socks is just, I don't know. Are we in the Middle East? Women can't show any skin. I just don't. It just, it was like, okay, you've got the rule, and the argument is the players should know the rules. They should read the rules. Did you see those pages of rules?
Ain't nobody reading that, Mike. Ain't nobody going through all that.
Philippines or Cheng Yong Ling from Taiwan, they're going to go through and figure out what each the nuance of each of those stupid little rules is, because it's the world championship, damn it, we have rules. It was so stupid. It was so stupid. So then you talk about common sense. At some point, you've got to exercise a little common sense. And I think after a while, they tried to talk to some of the refs, but a lot of them were just, you could get one treatment for one ref, completely different treatment from another. So it was just all over the board. And that's, that was a problem. I think they all knew that there. And hopefully we don't have to fade that again. As far as Sky goes, I'm not going to get into a debate over whether they were picking on him or had it out for him or whatever. I don't know that I buy that, but he's certainly seemed to run
You just
his
said it.
fair share of
I mean,
problems.
listen, he didn't do himself any favors, but that's part of why we love Sky, because of the way that he is. And listen, if you want to go down the list of more of the polite players and respectful players in the sport,
he's the best.
You're not gonna have to get too far before you say
No.
Sky Woodward's name. You're not. And I think that just further lights a fire under people's asses when it comes to this conversation. Look, to me, Mike, is that if I invite you to the party and you're the drunken idiot, it's my fault for inviting you to the party, right? You act the fool and I'm the one who brought you over. It's on me. It's on my shoulder, because you know what? I'm the one that invited you over. So in that aspect, I think the Bucks got to go and stop with Predator and those who are putting on the event. Same thing with the WPA. I don't care if the refs are too strict.
That's the thing. The refs, I think, are a WPA thing. I don't know if that was a WPA thing or a Predator thing. They all had Predator logos on their ref jerseys, so I don't know who you point the finger at for that. The rules are WPA rules. It's kind of, you're talking about this. It would be different if everybody had the same rules for every tournament. These guys play them all year round, right? Every promoter, every association, these guys go through different rules every time they go into an event. Don't expect them to memorize your rules before they come to this tournament. Be realistic.
Hey, hold on. I just want to address Carl's comment there about the U.S. Open 10 ball being here in a pool room. Listen, Mark Griffin set aside $50,000 for players to be able to make some money before he passed away. Just give the guy a little respect is all I'm going to say. Love you, Carl, but this guy did that on his dying bed, so let's just give the guy the respect that he deserves here. So no, yeah, I'm with you, Mike. I think it was just a bit too much, and for people who are able to put out things addressing the tournament, whether scheduling, whatever, they do a number of different things and do a number of different things very well, and so if you're able to do that, just come out and nip it in the butt from the beginning. It didn't have to continue like that. There was enough guys in there who are ones who want to be in power and make decisions or whatever else, right? Go on there, put your face in front of a camera or on a post, get a quote, whatever the case may be, and say, hey, listen, we're addressing it. You know what that does, Mike? That buys you favor and patience and with fans, with players, with whoever, but if you hear Sky, he don't know who's going to go to bat for him. He didn't know where to turn and who's going to be able to have his back in that instance outside of his sponsors or his friends or whatever,
Right.
And so
he's 100% right.
That's a big problem, And so listen, you know how it is in life, Mike. If you get singled out by someone, I'm not saying it happened or it didn't happen, but it's human nature, I may not treat this person like I treat that person. Everyone's been guilty of that at some point or another, And so, but I think that having these players be more vocal when it comes to certain things is just a necessity these days, right? They need to utilize the platforms that they're building in order to kind of move the arms out a little bit, let them know that, hey, you're not having a show without any of us, and they're not, Mike. If a number of players don't show up, ain't nobody give a shit about what your WPA World 10 ball championship. It's because all those great players are coming over from all over the world in order to compete and participate. That's the only reason why people give 2 cents about it. And so I think in that aspect there just needs to be more a better effort, and so I know Sky had said before that people were talking to him afterwards and apologizing or whatever, but that all that stuff happened over 10 days, Mike, and there was a lot worse stuff that I heard coming from refs treating players than that. that was not public that I hope does become public one of these days. I'll put it like that, Mike.
Yeah,
So
there was a lot. There were a lot of people who said not only were some of the rules, arcane and whatever, but that the way they were informed of decisions and whatever was a little less than diplomatic and professional. So that would be a problem for me.
yeah, for sure. I mean, and if you keep it behind the curtains, it's going to stay there. Is the thing, So
Yeah,
anyhow, Mike, more events were going on throughout the week there at the Rio.
yeah. Women's
Well,
Showdown I thought was cool. I thought that was a 16 player, 3 rounds at the beginning of a little bit of a round robin to determine the final 8. I thought that was a really cool event. Um, and I think what we can talk about if you want to for the whole week is, how'd the Asians do this week? there were
they're
five.
they're
There
on
were
a flight
five
with all the
tournaments.
money.
There were 5 tournaments, which means there were 10 players who made the title match. 8 were Asian.
How strong is that, Mike? Say that stat again. That's pretty good.
8 out of the 10 finalists, well, yeah. 8
Who
out
were
of
the
10
two? Christina Tkach and who was the other one?
Well, the doubles was Kazakis and Kelly Fisher.
Okay, well, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
But every final was won by an Asian player, and 3 out of the 5 finals were Asian versus Asian. So, so the Europeans may, be careful what you ask for when you're like, we want a Reyes Cup, we want some competition, because you can get run out of it. You can get run out of Manila real fast with that group.
Oh, they can play for sure. Whether it's male or female, pick a country, and they're going to get their money's worth. And from a
Yeah.
competitive standpoint, and just from fans who just love pool, that's part of the reason why I've been, complaining about getting that event going for so long.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see whenever it does come to fruition. Because I do think they can give the Europeans a massive run for their money and pick the game, right? Pick
Yeah, right.
9 ball, let's do it. Whatever it is. And so
Yeah.
I think they're more than stacked. Naoki's showing that he can get back into a world championship. When I was talking with the gentleman this past week, and he was like, "Do you think he's got a chance to to make it into a Reyes Cup?" And I said, "No, I don't." Because I don't think he's on
Yeah.
when it comes to points, and just the way that it's going to work out. But it just shows that you can pick great players out of any country, and you're gonna have you're gonna be a threat and probably even money, Mike. I'd say at a minimum, if not a favorite. So
In what?
in the Reyes Cup, I would say.
Favorite, 100% favorite. But
You think favorite?
what I would say is that I think, now we're going way off with, but what the hell? That's what the show's for. I think in a Reyes Cup, Europe will have the advantage the first year or two, because there is a certain way to play that type of tournament, and the camaraderie and togetherness, and know how to, and so I think that it may take the Asian players who make a Reyes Cup team a year or two to kind of develop that kind of comfort level that the Europeans have. And I think that the Europeans playing, overseas the first time they have the Reyes Cup will help them focus and stay as a team and be united and whatever. So I would say the first year I'd probably pick Europe to win, but that's not going to last long.
They got a lot of heart, Mike. They play with with more pride.
They do
for their country more than I think any group of player. And so I can't wait.
Their top
for that
5
event.
is super strong when they get a team together. But if it was a 10-man Reyes Cup team versus a 10-man European team, no bueno for the Euros.
Yeah. Slaughterfest, Mike. Slaughterfest. Yeah, big shout out to some of the women though, Mike. Cheska, Chow for winning their events. Both played strong. Big shout out to Christina for making a final. She played some great pool, Mike, over those few days. It was interesting though, Mike, because they've been promoting and talking 10 ball over the last few years. And what was your takeaway from them having that showdown event be 9 ball?
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually asked Karim from Predator about. I said, so tell me the rationale behind doing 9 ball, and he just thought because of the faster, it was more of a Matchroom-esque type of, event more than a really,
He said the
true
Matchroom word,
tournament.
Mike.
No, I
You
did.
heard him say, yeah.
I did.
Okay,
No,
okay.
he didn't say that. Trust me. Uh,
That's funny.
if he did, it wasn't in those terms.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
no, but he said, they just liked the idea of 9 balls, faster pace, good television game, a little more excitement. In a 16-player field, final 8 was, got to final 8 really quickly, and then single elimination. So it was kind of more of a television production type of an event, creating programming. But it was fun. I thought it was great fun.
They were able to have some core matches that were solid from the beginning with the way the format laid out,
Yeah.
which was great. I love the outside the box thinking, and let's just be honest, with the void that's going to be left with lack of Pro Bird Series events, having more opportunity for the women here while
Yeah.
they're here is great.
The women
Why-
loved it. I mean,
Yeah.
unless you were from the U.S., there were no U.S. women in that 16-player field.
While you're in the U.S.,
well, I suppose you could find one spot for one just to do it, but on merit, you wouldn't have picked one, right?
no.
Okay,
I'm
so
married to her.
so I understand it. I understand it. But yeah, it was a really good event, good show. Good to see the women playing. Some good pool for some decent money. So yeah, I think they all enjoyed it.
Reached out to Karim from Predator to come on the show and see if you'd like to discuss a few things. Did not hear anything back whenever I hit him up, and then whenever I spoke to him, he had other things going on. So no surprise there, Mike. But I just want to make sure and put that out there. So
Busy guy.
you got a lot going on, that's for sure. We got a lot going on as well. We're live from Griffs here in Las Vegas. The U.S. Open 10-ball championship continues on today. Post Up is going to have the stream. Morning match is going to be Max Lechner against Luca Min. And on that note of, you were talking about kids who don't belong in the World Championship. That Luca Min, I saw him play, Mike. That kid can play some really good pool.
I'm not saying that they can't play pool. I'm not saying they can't play pool. And the Euro Tour is still going to be where these guys develop.
Yeah,
they
got some monsters that are out there who they
do a great job.
Yeah.
That's one thing. The European Federation, they do a great job. The national federations do a great job of developing talent and send them through the Euro Tour. And I, all the respect for that. So yeah, you're just going to see one monster after the next continue to come out of that.
That's what I love, because
you're
going to have, what I love is that you're going to have some great stories come out of that, kids who can make deep runs,
Yep.
And so obviously they got to get a little more seasoning under their belt and go through some growing pains, but you can tell that they're learning the right way, and the competition that they're learning against is absolutely stiff, Mike, So I'm looking over the room right now. Luca Min's here, Max Lechner, Dorner, Mora, Nick DeLeon, Eric Holverson. It's a nice group of talent here, and so you guys can check out Post Up for the stream. We're gonna have some more stuff going on all day long. We're gonna go live in like maybe 30-ish minutes or so. So
yeah, great stuff you guys are doing out there with the live stream the whole week. It's a grind, but
2 weeks, Mike. 2 weeks we're going to be here. So we got 4 events overall: U.S. Open 10-ball championship, followed by U.S. Open 8-ball championship, U.S. Open Banks, and then U.S. Open One Pocket as well. So a wide array of events.
How many of the Euros? How many of the players are they losing after the 8 and 10 ball?
Pretty good chunk.
Pretty good chunk. There's an event in the Boston in the East Coast, right? World 9-ball Tour points event. As long as they're in the country, a lot of the Europeans are going there. Correct?
Yeah, I heard there's also an event out in Poland or something that's paying pretty juicy as well.
Yeah, there's an event in Poland as well.
Yeah. So yeah, they're going to lose a pretty decent amount here. I'd say probably at a minimum a third, maybe a little more. But there's that's part of the beauty of where the game's at, right? You can go anywhere in the world and get and be able to compete, right? Boston is the big one for a lot of these guys because you have players who are chasing Mosconi Cup ranking points, and so they're going to be out there playing at I forgot that pool room, but it's gonna be fantastic, Mike. And I want to listen. Events like that are super important because I know what some of these guys are chasing, right? I want to see a guy like Mario make a run. I want to see these guys who have been like fringe type players who can take that next step. Because look, we were there sweating, in the last day of the U.S. Open, right when it was moving day, and I think this year, Mike, you may end up having like two rookies on Team Europe, and so and a part of that is due to the setup that Matchroom has done and the way that they've worked with promoters all over the world, and the way that people are going to be chasing points. Mike, it's a great thing.
What do you? How did your conversations with our WPA buddies go? Speaking of points, sanctions, and
it went okay. So I want to respect the conversation that we had, but
yeah, no,
in a nutshell, they're still, it's just echoing a lot of what Matchroom said and Emily.
yeah.
They're still in conversations. Clearly, from what Matchroom said, nothing has been locked up yet between the two. It's interesting because I've heard kind of mixed reactions from players with strong federations, whether or not they're hopeful that it does happen, or maybe hoping that it doesn't happen, that that they come to some kind of agreement. I think that
why would they
what
hope it
happened
wouldn't
the other
happen?
day, the players,
Yeah, why would a player?
because they don't want to be under the thumb of the federation anymore. They're happy, they're relieved of the freedom, and the politics and the bullshit they got to fade from being like. Now, if
Actually, still
Matchroom
give them
goes back
freedom
in bed
to play
with the
wherever they
WP,
wanted.
no, but I think it's just the politics within the federation, Mike.
Yeah.
Just a lot of things that they got to fade that they don't, and everyone's got their own unique story, because you can go from one country to the next and talk about, and see that guys are just having to fade different things depending on where they're at, Mike. But I think it just showed just how much the WPA can't get out of their own way over the last 10 days or so. They impose this deadline, then they scramble ahead of the deadline in order to get it out, to get out some kind of statement. But it's like, you did this to yourself. You're the one who made this date. You're the one who was trying to make an agreement before that date came up.
My favorite part of the Matchroom statement was the last line. It said, "We look forward to the future when our events are co-sanctioned by their corporation and the WPA." So,
it's just those little things. They just want to push a little button right at the end.
Just make sure,
which is great.
Listen, if we come to an agreement, no one's going to be telling us how to do anything.
Oh yeah, and listen, what they don't have any leverage, Mike, to be able to say, yeah, we'll heed your rules, or you're this or you're that. There's no. Matchroom is doing a great thing. They're accomplishing a whole lot.
I believe that WPA still thinks they have leverage in certain areas. I believe that.
Well, there's a saying that we got here in the States. I'm not going to repeat it here, but it's, you're going to find out in a nutshell, Mike. So, anyhow, Mike, I hear you're heading to St. Louis. Do your Billiards Digest Live.
Yep, Billiards Digest Live coming up. Look on Facebook on Wednesday. A little recap of all this and of everything that happened in Vegas, and a recap on WPA Matchroom, and then a little segment on it's Women's History Month. So
there you go.
Big shout out to the ladies, and talk to a bunch of the players out in Vegas about, a bunch of the women players about how they, what it was like being a woman player growing up, how it's changed over the years, what kind of challenges they faced, things like that. So really good stuff.
Make sure and tune in. I got to run because I got to finish getting ready. Mike's got to run too and finish getting ready for his thing going on. We appreciate all you guys for tuning in. I'm going to go live throughout the day here at Griffs. Make sure and check out Post Up. We're going to be live from the U.S. Open 10-ball championship here shortly. Mike, I appreciate you joining me as always, buddy.
Yep, always fun. Have a good trip. Have a good time out there. Keep Collins under control.
Nope, it's the other way around, buddy. Trust me. All right, we'll see you guys later.